It's all burned.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. This is our board meeting of February 27th, 2023, for the Board of Park Commissioners of the Lake Bluff Park District here in Lake County, Lake Bluff, Illinois. I am going to ask please to call order, Michelle.
Commissioner Greenfield.
Here.
Commissioner Lane. Here. Commissioner Raymore.
Here.
Commissioner Reeder.
Here.
Commissioner Welsh. Commissioner Weber.
Here.
President Buell.
Yes. Next up, may I have a motion, please, to approve our agenda for this evening?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Greenfield.
Yes.
Commissioner Lane. Yes. Commissioner Raymore.
Yes.
Commissioner Reeder.
Yes.
Commissioner Weber.
Yes.
President Buell.
Yes. Next on our agenda is the statement of visitors. We have stated that, we allow anyone who is here tonight, either present with us, and we do have a number of people here, as well as on Zoom, to be able to comment to the board about anything that is not just on the agenda, but in part of the park district. Again, it's comments to the board. We listen. We don't exchange information back and forth, but we certainly do take notes and hopefully can respond to what you have at a later time. So with that, I will ask if there's someone who would like to stand and make a statement.
I will.
Thank you.
So, good evening. So, tonight marks over 2 months since the board and management were officially made aware of the community's desire to have the park district go back to pre-COVID hours for gym and fitness during its peak demand time. Tonight also marks 1 month since 135 residents presented a petition, and this board voted to direct management to go back to pre-COVID hours as soon as they were able. But even though at the F&P committee meeting on January 9th, management stated, quote, "We can go back to weekend pre-COVID hours right away," end quote, it took over 3 additional weeks before it was implemented. All the while, residents didn't have additional access to gym fitness during the height of the meeting. Tonight, management still has not gone back to pre-COVID weekly hours of operation as directed by this board. Now, management might be excused since they stated they would go back to weekly pre-COVID hours shortly. But what is truly inexcusable here is that management has refused to work with the residents for the betterment of the Park District community in this endeavor and others. Management has not shown any willingness and desire to participate in activities that promote the community. For example, not sharing specific staffing needs, the community could spread the word in getting interested people to work, or not accepting board members or residents, volunteers willing to fill the staffing gaps so we could have opened back up. The offer was extended to assist multiple times, but unfortunately ignored to date. Like not many a Park District mobile app for the community, which would allow for mobile registrations, communications, surveys, ordering food from the golf course, among other things. Even though over 25 other neighboring park districts have already done this, some in just 30 days for as little as $3,500. The offer was extended to assist, but unfortunately ignored to date. By conducting community feedback prior to spending up to $100,000 on new fitness equipment, so we know we are making the right investment, instead of just spending money because, per management, quote, "The last loans on equipment we paid off in April, and we have the money in the budget for it," end quote. Again, the offer was extended multiple times to assist, but unfortunately, still ignored to date. So let me stop here and close the same way I did over 70 days ago. And then, again, 30 days ago, here at this public forum. The community is eager to help in these endeavors. Please just tell us how we can assist and be an active part of the solution. It is my encouraging expectation that this issue will be addressed immediately. So 30 days from now, we can be here demonstrating this board's vision of, quote, strengthening the spirit of the community, end quote, through the success the Park District management and the community will have accomplished together. Thank you for listening. Thank you. You have my information before that all.
Anyone else for this one? Yes.
Hi, my name is Bill Herman. I live at 516 Center Avenue, and I had a kayak, one kayak and one sunfish down at the yacht club, and I also have a kayak at my house, smaller kayak that has wheels on it, and a sometimes when other family members or guests want to go kayaking with me, we bring it down to the beach. And I was just made aware recently that wheeled access for kayaks is not going to be available pursuant to the recommendations that I saw that are part of this agenda for tonight that are supposed to be approved. And I strongly disagree with that. I think there's a number of accommodations that need to be made to the public. I mean, I was under the impression that access was going to be available for people to bring their kayaks down to the beach, and I went out and spent a few $100s on a nice new fancy cart for my kayak, and now it's apparent that I'm not going to be able to use it. I mean, I only live a couple blocks from the beach. I guess I don't mind carrying it part of the way down or something, but I looked at a map that was part of the board package, and I saw it looked like, I don't know, the last part of the map showed a sign or something at the steps that are part of the open lands area that's currently blocked off, and so I don't know if that's going to be available to be used, but those steps are kind of funky right now. Also, I kind of got a bad shoulder, and I've had a disc herniation that had to be operated on. I had spinal surgery. I have numbness in my arm. I've got nerve damage, and so, for me, carrying the kayak, while I'll do it from a certain point, it's going to be difficult. And so I'm looking for some more accommodations here. I don't know what the ADA says about that, but I'm assuming that somebody in my situation who's 61 years old and has some health issues may need to be granted privileges under the ADA. And I think that, it sounds like the gator is going to be available for people to get stuff down the beach if they're having a party or something. So I don't know why the gator wouldn't be available. I don't know why there wouldn't be certain hours that would be available, because I'm assuming that they're not doing construction down at the beach during the full amount of when the park district is open at the beach. I usually use my kayak in the evening or at night. And, I'm assuming the trucks aren't going to be coming up the road at that point in time, and I ought to be allowed to cart my kayak down to the beach. And so I would urge that you not approve the recommendations that are in the board package, but find some more accommodations to those of us who were basically promised that we were still going to have access to the beach for some boating needs. Also, I'd like to point out that the Bluff itself, I was on the committee when the NSWRD came to the Park District back in, it was 2005 or something, with this idea about digging a big hole in the ground down there. At that point, I was part of the committee that went through lots of things, right? What it would look like, and you guys put the plan that we developed at that time with Cliff Miller in the package of materials that was part of, your consideration NSWRD proposal. And part of that whole plan that was implemented at that time was addressing the vegetation on the bluff. At that time it was pretty overgrown, and you guys hired Mary McCotter's company. I forgot what the name of that was now, but they came in and did a lot of removal things, and they did that for a couple of years in a row, and since then things have grown back, and it's just gotten back to the state that it was in then. I know there's been some herbiciding that's been going on, but I feel that it needs to be sort of looked at again, and maybe just implement the plan that Cliff Miller developed then, to go through and get rid of a lot of stuff, because there was like staghorn sumac and all sorts of stuff all over the place down there, what I call tag alder, that's just growing crazy and needs to be cut back, and including the Oriental bittersweet vine that is attacking the fence that's part of the NSWRD property, and I thought they're supposed to be in charge of taking care of their property, and obviously they don't pay a whole lot of attention to that property. And so I'd like to encourage, the spring coming up, that somehow some budgeting occurs and some, hardcore management occurs on the bluff, more than just sort of spraying for weeds and whatnot.
Thank you.
Hey, Mechanical, 360 West Washington. First, I will agree that not forcing, I'm a kayaker myself. I wheel my kayak down to the beach all the time. A lot of people don't know, 80% of all kayak injuries happen on land. If you are going to make residents carry kayaks downstairs or trails or anything like that, you're opening yourselves up to a lot of potential injuries. So I would agree that using wheeled access for kayaks to the beach is something that is probably a good idea for a lot of our residents who, don't store their boats down at the beach. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here today, first of all, because I want to thank you guys for just the diligent work that you've done in the past year to make sure that we still have all of the property assets within our portfolio, including the golf course. I want to call out that through the diligent research that was done in terms of the exact amounts of facility needs for the park district, specifically, estimates that call for $46 million for the pool, $6 to $8 million to fix the beach. We're looking at other facility shortfalls that put upgrade requirements, and I'm ballparking here, but anywhere between 14 to potentially $18 million in needs for park district facilities. Currently, the fundraising efforts of the park district and the Friends of Lake Bluff Parks has proven that they are nowhere near the amounts, or able to raise amounts that are required right now within this park district. These are very real numbers and very real needs. So I'm here today to encourage this board to not put the fundraising needs directly on the park district staff, but to create a fundraising specific committee to give very strategic direction across all fundraising efforts that include general public, private angel investors, corporate donations, and grants. A committee that can overhead all fundraising efforts across all areas that will allow this committee to, instead of waiting for funds to roll into them from friends who might want to donate, to have strategic and coordinated efforts across all available options to fill the very real needs that this park district has. That's all I'm going to say about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, also, I'd be happy to help.
Thanks, McKinney.
Nice way to close it out. Anyone else?
I need help to figure out how to get boats on the beach.
Thank you. Look, we are a good volunteer community, which is great. Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to comment?
There are no participants.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeff. All right, moving on now to the second part of our agenda, verbal communications from staff, please.
Just, most of our information are in the reports or the packet itself. Just wanted to make a couple additional notes. I did meet with another consultant to keep the discussion going about the updating strategic plan. And also we received a request or an email from Kathy O'Hara regarding the History Museum doing an exhibit that's going to celebrate the the first elected school board members 100 years ago. So you're all invited to that. I forwarded that email to you. It should be pretty exciting. And she also put in there that they be happy to talk to us about the Park District's upcoming 100-year anniversary in 2025, and whether we wanted to work with the History Museum in putting together an exhibit for that as well. That's all I had to say.
Okay. All right, we don't have our attorney with us this evening, so no need for an attorney report. Finance Administration and Future Planning Committee.
We have not met since the last board meeting. We have a meeting scheduled tentatively scheduled for the 13th of March.
Thank you. Parks and Beach Committee, we did not meet either. But I think we'll be rotating into our meeting coming up soon. Facilities and Program?
We did have a meeting on February 9th, and we talked about the fitness fitness center operations, staff going to pre-COVID operations. They've done a couple different things. If you want to share that, with moving the cycles back. So they started doing some of the pre-COVID, going back to pre-COVID. And then we also reviewed the fitness center strategy. Committee also asked staff to include trackable data to goals to discuss and review at the next meeting. And then the last item we discussed was the pool renovation. And the committee requested staff to get 3 estimates of an updated need assessment. This is on the discussion of you have to have a plan to get a grant. So we need a plan if we want to even apply for a grant. So this is the first step we thought as a committee, is to get an updated needs assessment estimate. The last one was in 2011. And so it's 2023, so it'd be a good time to make sure we have an updated needs assessment. So we asked to get 3 estimates on the cost of that, and then hopefully we can get that done and then move forward with getting an estimate on the work that needs to get done. So then we can have a plan to then get grants.
Emily, what exactly is a needs assessment?
So in 2011, the park board did the needs assessment with the studio GC, and they did a really good assessment of everything. And it's outdated because it was in 2011. Sure. Just to know how the concrete is doing all those different assessments that are outdated.
Oh, so this is just solely limited to the pool?
Yes.
Okay.
There's some grants that are specific for the pool.
Okay.
We're going to be looking at.
Those state grants?
The park and Osmond.
Okay.
Yeah, there's state and federal grants.
And we have to have a plan
Sure.
to then apply for those. So yeah, the needs assessment would be for just the pool. Is anything else that we just passed at the committee level? I don't know, Sue, you weren't there. Yeah. Okay.
I think we just also discussed the summer operations and programs.
Oh yeah, that was updated. Everything's back to normal.
Yes. And what you mentioned earlier, for moving back to pre-COVID, to the spin class, we moved it to a different classroom. So that was just recently moved back to the spin class with the bikes. And it's mostly positive. We're still hearing from a few that liked using the other equipment that was in there previously. During COVID, we moved some extra fitness equipment in there, but it's just going to be kind of a balancing act. The other thing, we've moved back to the weekend hours, pre-COVID hours for the past 3 weekends or whatever it's been, and then we're working on a weekday hours again. Still not really having the staffing level to cover that yet, but we're advertising for a couple of new evening positions to help try to cover those, so we can get those open as well for the discussion with the board.
I don't know if this is the time, but we had mentioned something about, or somebody had mentioned at a previous meeting about getting volunteers to help with staffing. Is there a barrier to that?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not really, a viable option. I think we checked with the Durham at one point. And so that wasn't going to be just a viable option for us. We need to do it, cover it with staff, with trained staff for those, and not volunteers.
Okay.
I think that's one of the issues that we get to is making sure that folks go through training. We did have somebody in training and didn't even show up, if I recall correctly. That was quite some time ago, but the training is essential in order to be able to open and close the building, all the other aspects that go on in front of the rec district.
The other, just while we're talking about hiring, and then we have a rec manager position that's open as well that we're advertising for, but we're very pleased with the number of it and the quality of the applications that we're getting for that, with 2 that have already been interviewed, 2 more that are going to be interviewed. Second rounds for the first 2 have been scheduled, so So things are looking pretty well, and that's a key position, so we're happy about that. And it does seem like we're starting to pick up a little bit more traffic in that area and getting applications even for park maintenance. I think they just extended offers to a couple of seasonals for park maintenance, and so it seems like things are starting to get, slowly a little bit better for the park district and, in that hiring department.
Thank you. Golf committee.
We have not met. We will have a meeting March 22nd, but in the interim, as John put in his report, John and staff met with golf officials. I mean, Noah, you were there. I don't know if you remember. Wolf, you were there. And started the discussions over these programs that we discussed at the last meeting with, so far, pretty good reactions from golf officials. Not everything was exactly as we wanted or hoped, but we're going to work on that. We have, Andrew Henkel and I are going to meet with John on the 17th of March with the Illinois PGA to talk to them about putting together this junior golf instructional program, which Golf Vision agreed to, so we can move forward on that. And then we will have a committee meeting on March 22nd where we're going to put everything together and try to push forward and get the programs moving. So staff is working on some budget issues this night on the range where we'd have to go out and find these inflatables and the games and so on that we put out. And, so staff is looking into that. And so we're moving. And as you all saw, we got a check from Golf Vision for $36,000 for our 10%, on top of the $40,000 fixed fee. This year, the fixed fee remains $40,000, but the percentage of the profit sharing goes to 12% from 10% last year. And now we're just praying for the weather.
The warmth is coming soon. Thank you. Friends of Lakeland Parks.
Okay, so I attended my first meeting on February 13th, where they officially voted me onto the board. Currently, they are working on getting organized for the Color Run and for the Sunrise Rocks fundraiser. So they are actively working on figuring out the dates and logistics of all of that. More to come on that. And then they are also, as a board, working on doing an overall board assessment. So they're asking all of their board members to fill out strengths and weaknesses and statistics to get, I think, a better handle on what how they can kind of better organize as a board. So that's great. And then we're also working on, I've attended 2 retreat planning sessions with Jennifer. So trying to work through how that will be structured and what that will look like. I believe the last one a little bit early. Did we determine a date?
We've got it on our agenda for
Is
today.
it? Okay. April 15th. April 15th, okay, I thought I saw that somewhere. And that's it.
Thank you. And congratulations on being voted in.
And then our next meeting is March 13th.
March 15th, okay. Commissioners'
So April
comments?
15th is fixed
It is,
for this retreat?
and we've got that later on the agenda, but yes, we'll kind of, we'll talk a little bit more about that. Commissioners' comments. Actually, I want to start out first because we did ask to have Sue Raymore as the representative from Lagola. So I wanted to just bring to everyone's attention that Lake Bluff Open Lands received a grant for Carolyn Betts.
Yes, they did. I believe it was for 10,000. Well, yeah. So last year we started with the gets and we removed all the, I did not. We had a professional decided to get rid of all the cattails. If anyone had been out there, you couldn't even see the water. the cattails that come in. And they say when it comes in that quickly, there's usually something that changed, the water, something, a pollutant came in. We don't have any way of knowing that, but probably an indicator that something changed in the system. But we did get a $10,000 grant, and we are currently waiting for another fairly significant grant from, or hoping that we'll get another one so that we'll be able to completely fix the boardwalk, which right now is mostly underwater. We've had a couple Eagle Scout projects that have been out there working, and they did do some repairs, but there's some more repairs needed, so, yeah.
So, what, 4 on getting grants under it?
I don't think they've been turned down on grants. I mean, they've been getting grants all over the place, for everywhere. Now it's like, oh my God, managing them all.
Yeah.
That's a lot to manage. I was building spreadsheets today. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Continuing to move ahead, and whenever there's an opportunity, in fact, Michelle found a grant today that it had to be for 150 acres. So I think she's going to be talking to John about, could the Park District use this grant? Yeah.
Good. Any other commissioner comments?
I have one, yes.
Yeah.
Some of you may have seen and read the article in yesterday's Chicago Tribune relating to the Lake County Forest Preserve Board agreeing to a memorandum of agreement to sell 52 acres from the Waukegan Savannah to the Waukegan Airport so that a new runway can be constructed at the airport. I'm going to keep editorial comment down to a minimum, but I have a copy of this article that I'm happy to email to any of you who did not see it or don't get the Tribune. I think that there are some interesting points in there, some very instructive points for us. I think we'll all see. I certainly saw some things that I thought were, let's say, related in some way or reminded me of situations we have been involved in over the last year. And I think it's a one-page article, and I think it's worth taking a look at to see what's going on in our neighborhood with this project to extend the airport with a new runway. So please let me know. I have an email form. I have the article in email form. Not very sophisticated email form, but I can send it to people. And I would urge you to have a look at it.
Thank you.
Can you just send it to all of us?
Yeah, send, I'd love to see it. Yeah, you can send it, please.
Anything else from commissioners? All right, on to President's report. Vice President Nikki Walsh is not here with us tonight because she is attending the village board meeting. Just because of the way that we shifted our meetings again, we are going to be not in the same schedule as the board. It was important for her to be able to attend tonight because the sustainability committee from the village is proposing an ordinance regarding gas-powered leaf blowers and also gas-powered generators. So thank you to everybody on the board. We had a letter that everybody had a chance to preview that I sent over to Regis. Regis did respond that he received it and encouraged someone from the board to be there tonight to be able to talk about this. It will give a financial, and first off, as a board, to say that we do support what the village is doing. It's very important with their green initiative, and because of the noise pollution, because of the air pollution, they're making a very large step to be able to correct that within the village or address that in the village. We have, just within the village, we have Malden Park, Artesian Park, we have the school, we have the golf course, we have a number of facilities that obviously need to have cleanup at different times of the year. The ordinance, with the way that it first was proposed for tonight, did have an exception, but, and I'll give you chime in as well, John, the discussion was that there would also possibly look at no exceptions for this, which would mean a financial impact for us to obtain electric power leaf blowers, and I don't even know about the generators with the cost of that. Last week we were speaking about that it was going to be another cost on top of the $10,000 to replace our leaf blowers. So that's where Nikki is tonight, and we'll be able to hear from her later as to what's going on. Did you have a conversation with her as well, John? Or?
Yes, I did. I just, mentioned our concern with the generators. I think, I don't know if that was targeted. I think one of the communities that adopted no gas leaf blowers, they didn't do the generators, and then some contractors were using small generators to power electric leaf blowers, trying to get around that. So I can see why they would want to add that if that were the case. For us, we use generators for special events. So for the color run, we use it for the sound system, or for the beach, we use it as a backup for our 4th of July band at the shelter, or inflatables. Contractors use them for, inflatables, of course, bounce houses. We've used one before for inflatable screen for moving the park, that sort of thing. So we have looked into rechargeable generators. Those would be costly. So we would definitely be spending a few thousand on those, each one, and I'm not sure exactly what the battery life is on those or how long those will last. Our other concern, if we have to do all the leaf blowers at once, it's, we're looking at the industrial or commercial grade, we're looking at, one of the backpack batteries, and it's a handheld unit. So the battery itself is about $1,200 per battery. And so, again, they look like there's quite a few, charge cycles where that would last, a number of years for us. But with the unit, the charger, and the battery, you're looking at $1,800 to $2,000 per unit, basically. Our other question is, will our electric panel support X number of new, rechargeable batteries if we're trying to charge them at once? A lot of times you need to have a 20 amp dedicated service or whatever. So we'd probably have to have that, that evaluated and see if that's going to be an additional, charge, what we could handle. That's why, ideally, if we could phase this in, we agree that it's a good initiative and that it's a good direction to be moving in. To do it all at once would be costly, a little bit more difficult. We'd like to be able to try to phase it in. We were talking about already, trying to replace through attrition is, a blower dies or something, we would replace that with a rechargeable one of the old gas ones. But we have some that are newer, $600 blowers that are only a year old. So that's, I know the original draft of the ordinance had the school district and the park district in as an ordinance, but it sounded, when I listened into the sustainability meetings now, that they were not recommending that exception be kept in the ordinance.
So again, we'll hear more. It's a good reminder that as we continue to look at new equipment, because I think somebody brought up the benchmarks the other day. So, for us to look at becoming more, green, more ecologically sound, but at the same time, hoping that the village will work cooperatively with us to give us some ability to be able to phase this in, so we don't have a huge financial hit all at once.
We're not arguing in front of the village now, but these laws, it's really strange that they are going to impose it immediately. I mean, these laws of conversion of equipment, and we were talking when California has passed a law that requires manufacturers to sell only electric cars, but it only takes effect in 2035 or 2040. It's unheard of to have these where it's just, okay, tomorrow, guys, you need all this. Can we even buy it all? Does it exist?
And the school obviously would have their concerns as well too, because they've got a large area that they've got to maintain.
I will say, and we talked about this, a lot of this goes to, we need to change how we do things. The days of everything being pristine and perfect, I'm going to send everyone, when I get it, a copy of the video I'm going to ask you to watch that the Garden Club presented to the community last week, but it's important that some of that leaf litter stays. So I'd like to hope that our future plan will be to reduce the amount of leaf blowing we use in some of those that equipment, so that's.
So we
I
said,
don't know if you happen to watch that, I can tell you, I've also got complaints that we don't take care of the leaves quick enough in parks, and they end up in the neighbor's yard, they call and complain about it, so.
Yeah,
It'll
I mean,
be,
people don't complain about everything.
yeah, it'll be a balancing act.
and the ravine of all places that should not be pristine, that should have.
No, that's where they dump their leaves.
Yes, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
So, okay, so, but again, thank you to everybody on the board for doing that. Again, we're supporting the village, and hopefully they will look kindly on us for our budgetary needs to be able to do this and accommodate this. On to our consent agenda. We have before us the minutes of January 23rd from the regular board meeting, the minutes of January 9th from the committee of the whole, the invoice schedule for ACH payables for the period of January 19th through February 22nd of 2023, and the purchase card ratification. Before I ask for a motion, any questions, comments, anyone?
So,
That was a polite pause to see if anybody had any other ones. Two quick ones, guys.
I could get through it.
Crisis Go Inc. for about $1,100, 3 different charges.
Yeah, I can tell you that. So we split it up in 3 different accounts: preschool, after school, care camps. And what Crisis Go is, it's an app. The schools use Crisis Go. We're one of the very first part districts that use it. It's for active shooters. That's what we have.
Gotcha.
And it takes video, it takes recordings, you can communicate with everyone. You can not just do it for active shooters, you can do it for tornadoes, you can do it for any kind of emergency.
Makes sense. And then end front, looked like an $1,800 charge. I didn't really see any description.
And this one is one of our independent contractors.
Okay.
They offer tracking vehicles.
That's money we collect, and then we pay the contractor.
Okay. Just didn't see a description for it. That was that. All I have, Paul.
Take it back to the motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Greenfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Lane? Yes. Commissioner Raymore?
Yes.
Commissioner Reader?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
President Fielder?
Yes. We have our month-to-date, year-to-date financial report in summary form.
Commissioners and President Bueller, Lieutenant Superintendent of Business Services. January so far has been an easy month because it's only been 1 month. Overall, the budgeted revenues, including transfers of $357, the actual revenues are $220,000. So we are trailing budgeted revenues by $136. However, not including transfers, the budgeted revenues of 182, our actual revenues are exceeding that for the month of July. So that is good news so far. There was a personal property replacement tax that came in, as well as programs is in regards to year-to-date expenses, all expenses are under budget. The operating expenses, the personnel, commodities, and contractual services are under budget at $110,000, almost $111,000. This has to do to personnel cost adjustments that haven't taken place yet, and they will be retro back to 1/1 of 2023. So that will increase the budget or the actual expenses to the budgeted expense level. As well as contractual services, that's just the beginning of your timing, getting all the contracts and services in place, and then billing us and then us paying them. So I move, or I request that you accept the financial report as presented, unless you have any questions, that I will gladly and enthusiastically answer.
Questions from any of the commissioners? Seeing as none, may I have a motion to accept the financial reports as presented by Superintendent Henninghausen?
So moved.
Second. Okay, roll call. There was a second, yeah.
Commissioner Greenfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Lane? Yes. Commissioner Raymore?
Yes.
Commissioner Reader?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
President Taylor?
Yes. Next, on to our new business. We have with us some representatives from our community church, from Tom Tickleman, and would you like to talk with us? We met with town report to be able to talk about their proposal to have a tent on the beach for the summer with our beach committee, so please take it away.
Yeah, very briefly, this, I guess, makes the fourth time that we've met about this with the staff. We also met down at the beach and had a chance to meet with the Parks and the Beach Committee at the end of January to talk about our proposal. I think the first thing that needs to be said, though, is we, as an organization, certainly respect and frankly honor and support the difficult but really important environmental decision that you all have made. It creates a lot of disruption, I know, for programs and for the families that you serve, but we applaud what you're doing and that it's happening for the environment. The construction that will take place, and it's taking place now, not only creates disruption for your programs and the families in the community, it certainly does for us. For 20 years now, we've held services on Sunday morning down at the beach. Sue, 20 years, if you can imagine that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of become, in some ways, a bit of a Lake Bluff tradition akin to maybe block parties or Rib Fest, because there are so many folks who join us down there who aren't actually part of our church community on any sort of regular basis. And we're the only church I know that actually has more people show up in the summer than the rest of the year. And that's because the beach is arguably the most spectacular place in our entire community. And so we had about 150 to 225 people show up, and when it was clear that the project was going to take place on the South Beach and the shelter wouldn't be available, the staff of the Park District was wonderful and reached out to us and said, you know what, we'd like to talk to you about using the North Shelter. Unfortunately, the North Shelter, there's really no way that it can work for us. One of our core values is being handicap accessible and making the services available to all people. The North Shelter just isn't, because you either walk a long ways or down the steps, or you walk a really, really long ways on the beach. It's also significantly smaller than the South Shelter. The sheltered space is 15 by 30. And there's no place really to put additional chairs or tents or anything else like that. So our proposal and how we think that the ideal way to move forward this summer in a way that provides a benefit for the people of Lake Bluff, for the Park District, and potentially programs as well as our church is to have this shelter. And we would pay for all of it. It would be cost neutral for the Park District from start to finish. That's an important value. And the only thing that we would ask is from the time it would be installed towards the end of May until whenever we agree to wrap things up in October, we would have access to it on Sunday morning. We would have one service at 9 o'clock in the morning. But usually, unless Sean preaches too long, it sometimes might go past 10, but usually it would go from 9 until 10. And by the way, this is Sean Miller. I should have introduced him. Sean has been part of our church for 3 years, lives here in town, and is a co-pastor. And I have the privilege of serving with him, so forgive me for not introducing him. But we'd be at 9 until 10 on Sunday morning. Takes a little over an hour to set up. an hour cleanup, so by 11 o'clock in the morning, it would be available to the community from 11 o'clock on Sunday, and every other day of the week. That would be for the park district to use, to rent if you so chose, to allow bathers to use, and people on the beach to have a chance to have a picnic, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing I think it's really important to note, and then I'll answer any questions you might have, is that there's not a part of this that will not involve the park district. So we're going to do behind the scenes work finding a commercial quality tent that will be 30 by 45. It will be open, but I see us, working with Jim or Noah or whomever, making sure that this is the kind of tent that fits down there from your standpoint, that the installation is proper, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we see it in a challenging kind of year as being a win for us because we get to keep this tradition going. And it also provides shelter for people who enjoy the beach, and there's no cost for the park district. So we're enthusiastic about it and happy to try and answer any questions.
Tom, can you show us on the schematic as to where exactly the...
Let's see, there. So here's the parking area, and here's the little shelter. And if you've been down there, you know that there's this breakwater right here. Here's where the swing sets are, and so we are, listen, right about in here, almost halfway, well, a little closer to the breakwater, kind of underneath this tree. There's a beautiful oak tree that reaches out towards the lake farther than anything else, but it's up high enough, and there's a space where the tent could be kind of nestled as far back up against the bluff as is possible, so it doesn't reach out into the sand. So it'll be as far back as possible, and it's close to the swing sets, but when I say close, it's still 20 yards away. And it's kind of in between, if I remember correctly, two grilling stations or whatever the language is. And grills, that's right, grills. And so visually, when you're down at the parking lot, because of the way the topography here and the plans are here, it's not particularly noticeable. Our hope is that we would be able to use power from the North Shelter, temporary power for our services if we need a microphone or things like that. And it would be an open air shelter. We wouldn't have signs on it. It's mostly to provide shelter in case it rains. And also, it gets pretty hot pretty quickly in the middle of summer down on the beach, so it provides shade. And our intention would be to purchase that and frankly then sell it for whatever we get for it at the end of the summer. So if you're looking for a deal on a tent, John.
And let's hope you don't need it next summer.
And there are details that need to be worked out, but this is sort of a design build project in a way. And when we get information from a tent contractor or people who are experts in that business on what's the best way to do that, and we talk along with you and let's move forward, then we'll make decisions on, well, is it best for us to have a floor, some kind of flooring or not? And we haven't gotten to that stage because we wanted to have, permission to be able to move forward before we got too deep into it.
Tom, I have a question. How many people who go to your Sunday service typically would need to have special access to the tent? Because, you mentioned the parking lot. Parking lot, right, is not gonna be there.
One of the projects, Paul, that we were involved in many years ago was getting the vehicle, you know, to help provide access. Before that was available, we worked with Sydney Services, and they had a van that went up and down. And so people take access, or enjoy access to that. In terms of numbers, it's hard to say. One of the things that would be part of this, and it was in the proposal, is that we would be purchasing and then donating to the park district enough additional of the blue access map. So we could take the map that currently exists and then extend that as far as it goes, and then we would buy additional, so people could take access map the whole way. So we know that there's not going to be any parking for anyone down there.
And that access mat is strong enough for wheelchairs.
Yeah, wheelchair, but you know what, it's used, there are wheelchairs sometimes. There are always people with walkers.
Yeah.
But what we find is there are just lots of older adults who, it's a project just to walk in the sand, and it's much easier, and they're much more comfortable walking on the mat. So that's primarily the people. We do keep the folks who run the gator up and down the hill pretty busy. So there are lots of people for whom that map is really important, and the gator going up and down the hill.
Would you continue to roll that mat up when it's not Sunday, like you do now, currently?
You know what?
Those are heavy mats, I know.
When it
but-
first came out we rolled it up every Sunday.
Yeah.
And now my understanding is that it has stayed pretty much rolled out just because of the number of people who are using access to it, and knowing what it looked like when it was brand new, and now how many years later, Jim, you think it is since it's been here, Noah?
At least 10.
Yeah, and so it's still in really pretty good shape.
You have to see what it looks like. I mean, that's the whole beach. I mean, you're basically running it the entire length of the beach.
It's about 2/3 of it, and that's one of those design build things. If you tell us we have to roll it up and put it somewhere at the end of every service, then that's what we'll do.
I would have a concern under the tree, just the big old oak, the compression and the burden that the roots would have to absorb with that much pressure on it. So that's, when you talk about a wood floor, that would be one of my concerns. No, I don't know, but I'd hate to see a tree die in 2 years because we had something heavy that was on it. I know that the tent itself isn't heavy, but if there's a lot of use there, and we decide to put a floor in, that could be hard on the roof. So I'm just concerned about.
I understand. I hope our hope is to not have a floor, and we would only do that if we absolutely need to. Our way of thinking about this is, it's the beach. And we need to treat it like a beach. So if you sit in a chair and when you sit down, it sinks down in 2 inches, and that's the way it is. This is very much an outdoor and sort of natural kind of experience.
Right.
So we're hoping to avoid that, and also the expenditure.
I just had I was gonna say, I had a question, and maybe they're related, about potential damage to the tent and insurance. So insurance, like if it gets damaged by your people or just residents or whomever it may be, or if someone gets damaged somehow gets injured somehow by the tent. Have you guys thought through from an insurance standpoint?
Well, you talked with your insurance people out of the gate, and they didn't have a problem with the idea. Is that correct, Jim?
That's correct. The church was going to provide us with a certificate of liability insurance. They have the tent.
Okay.
But from our perspective with risk management, they came on site and we showed them where it was going to be at Noah and I, and they did not have any concerns.
So I assume it's like
It's our
super
burden.
anchored
It's our
now.
burden. We're the ones who are purchasing the tent. We're making, it's a little bit of a risk, but we're okay with that. And that's why we want to work with professionals in this sort of tent universe to say, all right, here's the space. We know that the wind from the northwest comes across that lake big time. But that's also why it's an open tent. The other thing is because the prevailing weather is from the southwest in the summertime, and it's flush up against the bluff. And so that helps.
Injury or damage to the tent, and then also, I don't know anything about tents, but if somehow someone gets injured by the tent that isn't a church member or something like that.
Yeah, that's why we have
That's
to
the
have,
insurance is
we
gonna
have the insurance.
cover, okay.
Whatever the park district insurance companies or attorneys or both say this is what you need to do, that's what we'll do. And because as a church, we, for the last 25 years, have only worked with groups like the Park District or Lake Forest College, et cetera, we're used to getting those policies and working that sort of way.
So the park district we would be the ones ferrying the people down from the gate down to the parking lot?
Correct. We do now, with the ATV, but also some are allowed to drive down and use the parking lot. That would not, so nobody would be allowed to drive down. It would all be done with the ATV. And with the church purchased the ATV and donated it to the park district.
We went 50K.
Oh, 50/50.
And then we pay the cost for your driver, et cetera, every Sunday.
But the advantage of having the tent, especially because we're losing South Beach Shelter, is this could be a second, because Tom and Sean have worked with our superintendents, this could be a second location possibly for rentals, which would be very generous of you to do that, but you're not going to be using it on Friday evenings as far as I can see. And then, really just during the weekdays for extra shade. It's down there.
Yeah, we feel like we are the luckiest group ever to be able to have services down there in the summer. It's that simple. And so it's just so much a part of who we are, and we look everywhere under the sun. I think if we told people in our church that we were going to have indoor services in the summer, absolutely no one would show up. Everybody loves the beach. And so we would love to do this selfishly for ourselves, but we also think it provides a nice benefit for the park district this summer.
When we first heard about this, I thought the tent was going to be closer to the road. To the
parking lot?
Yeah, was it decided to move it so you had access to electricity? I guess I'm still
It wasn't
concerned
about
about
the electricity as much as it seemed to be a natural spot because it dips in a little bit, and we wanted to have it as far back as possible so it didn't jut out into the walk and play and sand area. And so that's where it kind of naturally fit. It happens to be under that big tree, and it's not on top of either of these grills, one to the south and one to the north. And it's kind of close to where the playground is, but not on top of it. And so, we're happy to tweak in terms of where you all want, but at this stage of the game, that seemed like a natural space.
So we discussed, we might have to do some trimming of a couple lower branches, a couple of trees for the tent to fit there in that area.
Yeah, we kind of want to just snuggle that in there, and I'm very enthusiastic about it.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Tom and Sean. Thank you. Could I give a motion to approve this project for the summer? So moved.
Second?
Thank you. Roll call, please, Marcia.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Beal.
Yes. Thank you very much, Tom and Sean.
Thank you so much. Jay will be in touch. We have a lot of work to do in the next couple of months, but we look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. All beach related, North Shore Water Reclamation District Basin Project update.
Okay, I spoke with Steve Waters last week, the engineer from North Shore Water Reclamation District. So moving forward with their plans to just finalizing the permits, the tree removal permits, and fencing. They're getting close to start, erecting the fence and start to get some of the construction going. So there really hasn't been much change since the last time that we talked about this. I sent them an email looking for, a few clarifications. Commissioner Raymore pointed out one email they were wondering about that south path by the Lavola area that was mentioned earlier. My understanding is that's not going to be open at all. It's closed off now with split up fence, and it's really fairly unsafe. So that I don't believe it's going to be open. I have to clarify what their note means on the drawing, but as far as the project itself, they're still moving ahead. I think
Are they thinking fencing within the next 3 weeks or so?
yes.
Okay, good. That's good to hear.
And that fencing does allow you, it's, because I see this, it says restricted access, authorized personnel only, but then the fencing doesn't start until you're down at the bottom of the beach.
Yeah, so you see what says track pad on there?
Yeah, what is the tracking pad?
So I believe when we talked about that, yeah, Noah can explain
I
that.
actually asked that question too. So it's a pad slightly larger than the table. It's got bumps on it. So when the trucks and tractor run over, it shakes off the sand that's on their tires and on there.
Oh,
So that they don't track it up and down.
that's kind of cool.
So that's not fenced in from the looks of their drawing, that part's not fenced in, but I think that, I've also asked about, the placement of our dumpster and a porta potty, assuming that area is kind of about the only area that would accommodate it, which, they're not, thrilled about, so I'm still waiting for clarification if that's gonna work in that area. We needed to have it where trucks can service both of those two amenities. And so we're waiting, still to get clarity on that.
I don't know who's going to lead the charge on this, if it's going to be North Shore or it's going to be the village, but I'd like to put out something coordinated to say, if the village is going to post something on their meeting site about the hours of operation for the trucks and about safety and about things like that, we should have the consistent message coming up from the Park District as soon as they do. But I'm assuming it's going to be the village that leads rather than North Shore Water Reclamation telling us.
Probably. I mean, they're moving slow. I know that we've talked about the signage. We've recommended, the sign, much like what we did, when we did our project down there on a 4x8 sheet with the landscape rendering, and, some of the project information. So they're actually doing that. So they're working with the drawings from Tesca, and they're working on doing that, for a 4x8 sign that will go down there. And they also said that they would provide that to the Park District so that we could use that to produce a smaller sign here for our lobby that we could have, for the residents to see that information when they come in here, because that was a request. Yeah, and we've definitely talked numerous times about a need for coordinated communication between the three agencies. And not just through electronic newsletters or different things, but probably, letters in the mailboxes of neighbors that are going to be directly affected by, the construction.
One of the things we talked about at the Parks and Beach meeting was the fact that while the village does have an ordinance as to when the trucks can come down there, obviously the trucks will start lining up well in advance of the time that they can start work. So there's going to be a very long day of all of the access points to the beach with a lot of different trucks, people, all different sorts of things going on.
So they have hours that they've restricted. Have they, days of the week, like, are they gonna be working weekends?
They'll have to request that on a, per time, occasion. Each time that they want to do that, they're going to have to request that from the village. If they're going to want to work, later in the evening on a weekday or through a weekend. And they might, because of rain's coming and they want to get a little bit more work done right now because they know there's going to be 2 weeks of rain. But that will be individual request, communication.
And you'll be kept in the loop. So we know when the trucks will be on the road.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and they will have a schedule of that.
What were the protocols that were followed during the Lily and Dell construction? And can we follow any of those similar protocols?
I mean, I think that they follow the basic village construction ordinances, as far as the times. But, I could check to see how this would compare to that, but I'm sure the village who, is the one that grants the permit on that would, for both of these, that project and this one would probably, well, I can request to make sure that that's, that they follow the same, ordinances and plans for this project, but I believe they are.
Okay, just as somebody who was personally affected by that on a very consistent basis, I thought the protocols were actually about as good as they could have been. So any type of changes to that, I think we would like to at least be cognizant of.
And maybe request that they don't go down your road this time?
No, they're going down my road, I know that, there's no other way.
Yeah, they were talking about, coordinating that with a contractor, truck routes and where they can queue up the trucks, because the problem you were touching on earlier, I mean, trucks can show up 30 minutes early, as they're waiting for the next, one to be loaded and go out, so where are they sitting and idling, and that if it's on a residential street in front of somebody's house, it's gonna be, one problem.
It was 7 a.m. and they were up by Blodgett and Sheridan there. Was at least more or less impactful than other places.
Yeah, I understand this will be a lot more trucks than that, so.
Okay. Go to Lily and Dell?
Yeah.
So are they considering this themselves to be still on timeline or behind, or has there been any discussion about that?
Contractor still believes that they are going to be able to be substantially finished by Memorial Day of 2024.
Okay.
So get a later start, but they still believe that they can finish in the allotted time.
So the contractor says that. Do we have any other, anyone else in the know who might offer a different opinion on that?
No, I mean, just in talking with Drew at the village, he felt pretty comfortable with that as well.
Okay.
So.
Is the contractor the project manager?
I don't know if they have a separate construction manager, but AECom is overseeing the construction, who we've worked with before, so that's who's, I don't know if that's the construction manager, might be. I think at least they're overseeing the project.
Who's the person who's in charge, the project manager, like who's leading? There should be one person, who's the head.
Yeah, there is a name that we've gotten from, on these emails that have the engineers from AECom and the village engineers in this contract. I don't remember what his name is right now, but I have emails with his name on it.
Are they going to change parking for the beach for the summer because of this?
As far as allowing or not allowing parking on certain streets?
Yeah.
I've not heard of any change, like on Sunrise. There was just some unrelated, some discussion of, what's the one street that's,
Mountain?
no, not Mountain, but there's one that's,
The one that's narrow.
the one that's narrow, that's a cross street between Center and Scranton.
Oh, Simpson.
I think it is Simpson.
Yeah,
And so I think the village is gonna make that one-way only parking.
okay.
So that's gonna have less parking, but probably better, at least for traffic. But that's the only thing that I'm aware of right now.
And how is this going to impact our sand usage for the summer?
So they're gonna provide some sand, you know, again, they're gonna provide some sand from the hole when they start digging. Some of the better quality sand they would have offered, you know, that we would use to, you know, the dog park area. But, and then we still plan on purchasing sand, but it would be less because we're, you know, there's a third less of the beach that will be, you know, in use, so we wouldn't put it in the South Beach area.
Oh, so they're actually gonna take the sand that's there and move it over to Dog Beach?
Yes.
They're gonna stockpile it along north and they're gonna stockpile for us, we're gonna have a contract to move it, because they're gonna move it in March. No point having it spread all out in March, and then
For the dog beach.
it's gonna go Dog Beach and potentially North Central. The estimate is good enough. The hole's gonna be 40 feet deep. So
Right, that's gonna be a lot of sand, yeah.
Is that really gonna, what's that gonna do with the rockiness of Dog Beach? Is that really gonna coat up there, or is that?
It will depend on how much we put over there.
Yeah.
We could probably try to cover a lot of it. Depends on how many storms we get and if it's changed as far as, obviously, no changes where the groins go and then the outcrop that's there now. So we potentially could lose without trying to cover it up as best we can.
So does that mean we're gonna have trucks driving across the whole beach in March?
No, they won't be able to drive across. They can't, it's too soft. So they're gonna have to move everything with track loaders, big loaders. They'll have to drive it out, dump it in piles. And I'll have to bring in a contractor and spread it.
And we still have someone coming out to look at the rocks on the beach?
So are they paying for that then?
Yeah, they're putting it there.
And then for us to get a contractor to move it?
No, we would have to pay to spread it as we need it on the beach.
They'll move it, we just
So
have
they-
to spread it.
Because that's gonna be a lot of sand.
Hopefully.
Yeah, until they get to the clay.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I was thinking that, how,
That's what we said, we want the clean sand, so, you know, that's gonna be monitored and then, you know, not just dump everything that's pulling out of the hole and save them a lot of money, but, yeah, so we're just interested in the better quality sand that as they start, you know, to.
The sand has been around the tank,
Mhm.
so how clean is it gonna be?
There's no tank there.
Yeah, there's no
Right,
tank
there's no
there.
tank there.
there's no
They're
tank.
putting in a tank.
They're putting in a tank.
Right.
Yeah, there's no tank.
They're taking this off the top, at the beginning, before they start. The first pile of sand, the first layer is going to us.
Yeah.
Jennifer, sorry, you asked about the picking up the rocks.
Oh, and
Yeah.
Joey said we are scheduled to.
Yeah, I'm working with,
Okay.
I have a contractor coming out to me, just to make sure we're on the same page.
What, for the rubble?
Yeah, for the rubble that's coming into, because now the beach, the north and Dog Beach are gonna be used more only for the summer. It's important for safety to be able to clear out as much as can be cleared out the beach.
So then it sounds like we might be able to have the Dog Beach back. Meaning if they're gonna clear out those rocks and put new sand in there, then,
No, they won't be taking the rocks out in that area.
okay,
That would be a very, very large and expensive undertaking.
okay,
This would be in the north and central
okay.
beach, so we'd have a contractor come in the swimming area
Okay.
and, you know, and remove the debris in that area.
Okay,
Simple beach, yeah.
yeah, it's like the stuff in the water people have been talking about.
It's all concrete.
No, like, do you use that?
Somebody did that on.
Like the Lake Forest, use
Like,
beach combers?
just pictures.
Do you use-
I like.
Use it on the beach, but not. These are,
Should I send that?
Oh, they don't do that?
No, we
It's all
are
the concrete.
talking to the company
It's
beach
a
owner in the
small
past,
portion.
but it wouldn't be viable.
So this was, I think, the quote, and then we've got, back in the late summer, it was about 20, just a little under 20,000 to do all the beach, including south, so this should be a little bit less to do middle and central area. We're planning for that for April or May.
Okay. All right. Okay, it's really going to be communication to everybody because I'm glad to hear that North Shore is going to give us that signage to be able to replicate here because, as we said before, everyone's going to look toward the park district even though it's not our project.
No experience.
So we have to keep saying, this is what's happening, this is what's going on, be able to answer questions as best as possible. So, good.
I'm assuming that'll be on the website too,
Let's
like with the update.
Yes, yes. On the website, making sure that our information is coordinated with the village is really good. Getting word out to the residents who are going to be directly impacted by that is going to be essential. Everybody has heard rumors of this happening. We know what's going on. We need to make sure that folks know what's going on.
We've been starting to run information for the past probably month in our newsletter. And then we're creating a tab on our website, on the homepage, just for this project, and try to keep as much up-to-date information as we can out there.
All right, on to the 2023 beach operations.
So, on page 35 of your package, you'll see a memo that Jim's put together. It's really kind of a summary of the information that was covered during the Park and Beach Committee meetings, a combination of discussion and recommendation of staff, and then the Park and Beach Committee themselves. So Jim, if you want to just walk through that real briefly for your memo.
Sure, we'll just hit the bullet points. Again, as we.
Jim, before you start, can you show again on the map or show us in some way where we're going to be cut off for accessibility?
Sure, it may be easier to look at page 32 of the
Page
packet
32.
because it's a little more detailed.
Yeah, Jeff Spillman can pull that up, the screen sharing like we had before.
That's page 32 of the full, of the first packet.
Yeah, whatever was sent out on Friday.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you. That's really kind of the starting point, so everybody gets an idea as to what's going to be not accessible to beachgoers during the summer. Thank you, Jim, but go ahead.
So Jeff, if you're able to put that up, page 34 of the updated packet.
Yeah.
Thanks. Go ahead, Jim, while Jeff is pulling that up.
What's that?
Go ahead, while Jeff is pulling that up, thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got to go back to the. Okay, so like we discussed earlier today, there won't be any parking allowed. Now, there's just no room for the parking. There will be room for emergency vehicles only. We will have the ATV as, to help out for ADA purposes, as well as for parties, and that will be able to access all the way down to the road. One thing that I should have probably put in there from the conversation we had was that NSWRD, they're going to control the flaggers are going to be down and on top. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
So they're going to be letting staff know when trucks will be coming up and down the road. So just remember that, during their operations. Hopefully we'll have an idea of every day of truck traffic, what's happening there. But right now we're not there yet. We're not towards construction here. A barricade, the barricade, I'll show you where that's at. So, Jeff, if you could, you gotta, you guys see the top of it, you gotta lower it a little bit, man. Right there, that's it. So right here, where the stairs come down, and then right here. So we're gonna put the bare,
That's not the stairs, this is the lower.
Oh, that's the lower,
Yeah, that's the lower, the stairs would
That's
be.
the Labola.
That won't be open.
Yeah, that will be open, you gotta lower it a little bit.
It doesn't go up.
Doesn't go down, doesn't go up.
Oh, okay. So like that, so it's gonna be where the platform is.
Yeah.
But the brand new platform that the, Friends had, donated, that's where we have the stop sign all the time. And so that's where people come down the one set of stairs, or you come down the access road. We're gonna route everybody, we're gonna try to route everybody down the stairs, or encourage them to take the stairs. However, we will have a gate person still up there with that ladder, and they can come down the access road, those 2 points, because they are gonna remove our current gate. We're not gonna have our gate there, correct?
That was my understanding.
That was a recommendation. Well, hopefully they'll do that, just so it doesn't get damaged, but there will be some sort of, temporary gate that they'll put up at the top.
And then we'll have like a barricade, that will prevent anybody from walking down, having access all the way down that road to the bottom. Because we just don't know. That was the big discussion at the Parks and Beach Committee, was when are we gonna know these trucks are coming up and down? And for safety reasons, I know one of the committee members was really concerned just not allowing any access at all down at the bottom.
And Jim, is the barricade gonna stay up after and before beach operation hours?
That's a great question. We could leave it up if that's what we want. I don't, our staff might not be there in time when construction begins, because our operations is from 9 to 10 o'clock. So we might just want to keep the barricade up and have the appropriate signage. We did discuss that. So we could put signage up at that point.
Jim, how do you put a barricade up if, starting at 9 o'clock, the trucks are going by at like 7 in the morning? Are they just gonna move that barricade to get in? How's that logistically
They
going?
will be, yeah, they will open it up, the village will have the ability to open it up, they need to get an ambulance or a police car down there, we'll have the ability to open as well. If we need to take the the sand groomer down there and things of that nature, but they're gonna have to coordinate it, but during the construction time, gonna try to coordinate this with the flag or the tops of the trucks, so there's just gonna be, a lot of truck traffic. And that was the discussion, I think, at the committee meeting and with staff, was that the safety was really the #1 priority here. So trying to, avoid the contractor and Tiffar, I think this is, an engineer, I did not want to see anybody down past that Loyola, area at all. So that, even taking a wheel, kayak part or something like that, you can only get to that upper platform, and, you would have to carry down those stairs there, and then you have the cart. So that's why, with the safety, it really wasn't gonna work with, with the amount of truck traffic that they're expecting with this project. So I think that, looking possibly, at a creative way, or maybe an area where the carts can be sort of at the top, close to the bike rack, or something like that, so you can get close, but, I think our feeling was that the safest thing right now for the residents is not to have anybody on that access path.
I'm a little confused with that, because the church is gonna be using that path all the way down weekends. And so, if we're making as a board accommodations for one group, we have to make sure we're doing that for all groups.
We would be doing that for ADA for all groups. That's not just for the church. For the church, we would be doing it for.
I know, but a lot of church members are gonna follow them going down.
They won't be allowed with their vehicles.
No, I'm saying walking down with their friends.
They're not, we discussed it with, Tom Dickelman, and he said he would have to take that route, the stairs down. Anybody who needed the ADA for the ATV for ADA purposes, we would use that to route those other people down actually. And we will do that during our beach operations as well. So we will help anybody out.
So you're still gonna have to go down there to help people with ADA, right?
Just for the ATV.
Right, so you're still gonna have that issue during the day.
But
Right.
if it's just ADA, people who, have disabilities and need it, it's certainly a lot less foot traffic than.
Yeah,
But you don't know who has ADA, you
Excuse
really
me?
can't, you don't know who has ADA, like, I mean, there's older people, but there's other people that have disabilities, so, I mean, you have to be careful about, like, saying, okay, well, only, like, you have to be careful of who's considered ADA, disabilities, like,
So Jim,
what disabilities are you covering here?
So Jim, the folks who man the gate who, if someone asks for that accommodation, they're the ones that say that they pull up the ATV
Yes,
and do that.
yeah.
So one of the things we talked about at the Park District, I thought about this a lot, because I was at the long extended district, but as we talk and we know that the trucks are only gonna be there unless there's a change in schedule from Monday through Friday,
It shouldn't be there on Sunday.
what's wrong with opening the beach road on Saturday and Sunday?
Right.
Or when construction is over, because this includes also prohibiting everybody who has a stroller, which is tons of people going to the beach. And you're either gonna have to ADA them down or do something. And if you have telling people they have to carry a kayak, are you really thinking you're gonna make those 90-degree turns to go down those stairs? Talk about
I just think about,
liability.
like, my neighbor, he had brain tumor, and that was his activity he would do. He would take his kayak down on a wheel thing, and he's dead, and I would be really sad if somebody couldn't do their activity so they could feel better.
Well, I can understand it when there's trucks actively using the roadway, but can we consider the fact that when the construction is not occurring, that we could open that road for pedestrians?
What will be down, what will be.
I don't know, I guess I'm just trying
I
that
just
out.
gotta preface it though, because one of the things that Noah brought up was how to look at the beach because of watercraft and because of swimmers. So maybe Noah, if you could kind of, and Jim as well, talk about what's the beach is gonna look like, because if you have watercraft and swimmers at the same time.
We anticipate and plan on putting the buoys from South Beach at the central cove in order to create that channel that we had months before for the sunfish, in order to kind of create that same channel for those with kayaks or those smaller paddle boards and things like that. So that's part of the operations that will get moved again from south to north, somewhere, approximately where the old dog beach or the temporary dog beach was, in order to allow people to get in and out of that and launch safely, to stay away from the swimmers, because we don't want the two to intermix, obviously.
So I think, the concern for staff, I think that's a good question, something that we can explore as far as the weekend. I think part of what we're concerned about is having consistent rules that aren't gonna change week by week, so if they decide how this weekend they're gonna work, and we have to change, our signage and our staff, protocol and everything, because now they're gonna do the construction through the weekend.
Oh, well.
Even that's not gonna happen much, and it wouldn't be such a big issue. But that's something that we could look into. Again, the safety was really the priority with this. I think, the other thing with the limited amount of beach, there's concern that if you get, 25, kayak cars parked down there while the kayakers are out, kayaking, that's gonna just further hamper, the use of the beach by, in a fairly congested area. So, that's why I guess the discussion was if you could, carry it on your paddleboard or your kayak and launch it, yourself, then, that's something that could be allowed, but, the cars are gonna be, I think, just an additional challenge.
Or you could rope off a little section, like towards the back, right, towards the tree line to say.
For 40 years, the Park District has had the yacht club down there. And as a result, the yacht club kept expanding their, it's called the compound.
Yeah.
But it has encouraged the use of paddleboards and kayaks, and the Park District is part of that. So to say that the beach is for swimmers only, I'm not sure that's a valid, thing to say. I'm not sure that we can
No, but
say.
it's 1 year, Sue.
Oh, I know.
It's not forever.
Oh, I know,
I mean,
but.
it is what it is. We're doing this construction project.
I'm just saying that when there's no construction, it is, I would like to see that we could at least consider using the road.
I would be afraid of all the equipment down there and all the possible places where if you allow access and you don't have somebody there making sure that the kayaks are going directly here and turning there, that you're gonna have, someone's gonna get hurt.
So I understand we should.
I would actually, a counter argument to that, Paul, I think there's a high probability of people getting hurt trying to navigate those stairs with heavy equipment when they're not fit to do so.
And we're also
John,
saying
what
no
are the
strollers.
hours? Do we know what the hours of construction are planned to be?
7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or 7 a.m. to.
It's not really 7 p.m., is it?
No, I want to do 7 to 5.
Yeah, usually construction, like when you're
Okay,
doing
all right,
construction,
that's
ordinance.
slightly more palatable. And that's Monday through Friday? And at whose discretion is it fall upon if the construction company wants to work weekend hours?
The village, they have to request that from the village to work either longer in the day or on the weekend.
Okay, longer in the day, and they can, and like, do you have any idea like how far in advance they need to request this information?
I think pretty short notice, there was some discussion about that at the pre-construction meeting when we were done with the contractor and the engineers, and the village, representatives, but, and again, so depending on, a weather forecast, they may decide they're gonna work some longer days, some 10-hour days or 12-hour days, for 3 or 4 days this week, because they're trying to get a certain amount of work done. So, yeah, I don't think there'll be a long, necessarily lead time on something like that.
All right.
And then our beach operations start at 9 and end at.
Yeah. 9 to 10.
9 to 10.
And
9 to 10.
And Jim, the flaggers at the top and the bottom, are they Park District employees?
Construction company.
Okay, because we're a construction company, like when people are walking down, there's construction company professionals at the top and bottom saying, hey, truck coming, truck leaving.
Right, that's my understanding, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we'll have a staff person at the gate as well, like we always have.
Sure, yeah, okay.
Can I
Understood.
ask a question about the flaggers while you're on that? Is the flagger at the top, you talking about the top of the road or at the platform?
The top of the road.
Top of the road. Okay.
And so we're trying to promote basically all foot traffic onto the pathway, the upper pathway, taking it all the way down across the access road and then down the lower pathway.
So there, you want people to cross over, just cross over the road, not take that road down?
Right.
Yeah.
John, I'm gonna throw a recommendation out there, and I know it puts you in a little bit of a tough position, but, Park District is making some sacrifices, and I would like to see, really for the benefit of everyone in this community, that we do have access on the weekends, and that if there is a massive extenuating circumstance, otherwise, or if there's a massive circumstance whereby the construction company wants to work on the weekends, fine, but more or less, like, that's ours, right? That's the Park District's, and I encourage you to have a discussion with Drew on this one to make sure that, both parties involved for the Lake Bluff community are on the same page.
I think that would be reasonable request, at least for the length of our summer operation, so basically Memorial Day to Labor Day. I think that's a reasonable request.
Okay, so if I'm hearing this correctly, during the weekday hours, there will be a barricade to prohibit folks from going from the platform down Monday through Friday, with the exception of anything that's ADA necessitated. Okay, but on weekends.
And rentals as well, we would be using the ATVs. In the past, we would allow 1 or 2 vehicles to go down and park in the parking lot to unload coolers and things for rentals. They won't be able to do that, so we'll have to try to help accommodate that service with the ATV.
But
So
the rentals aren't taking place during the weekday hours, are they?
Yeah, yeah, they do.
They do?
Yeah,
Okay.
not as much, but we do get it.
Okay. But then on weekends, it would be flexible and not have the barricade there.
Oh, I think that would be reasonable. Yeah.
Okay, so folks can come and go as they wish. There'll be enough fencing near the construction areas so that people are going to be naturally diverted then and not go on to South Beach.
Yeah, you couldn't get, based on the picture, you couldn't get to South Beach.
But people
correct?
could take their strollers down the road, right, take their kayaks down the road, and, but right now we're just talking about weekend. Right. Okay.
Hey, Noah, is that tracking pad, it doesn't look like it's inside of a construction entrance. Is that a hazard in any way?
I have not seen one
Okay.
with my own two eyes, so I can't answer that.
That's fair.
Could we find that out? Because if we do have, even if we have people walking down there, if they have to walk over it to get to the sand, I think we should make sure that it's either removed when they're not there, or,
Put inside the fence.
yeah, or make sure that it's fine to walk over.
yeah, that's a good point.
I've had a,
8 o'clock on Monday night. Push your stroll everywhere.
Hang on, we are having a discussion here. You have your time to speak.
So if we have.
I'll just leave that, you know. Thank you very much for that. I find it very interesting.
Sir, we are having a discussion. We leave.
Allegations for a religious entity.
We leave at the beginning of this meeting.
Constitutional issues that are raised. Recreation? Nah, forget about it. We're not about recreation, we're about religion. We're a governmental agency. Goodbye.
I think it does raise the question, if we do weekends, do we consider weekday evenings? That was my next push, or at least to consider it. If we can, if we know the trucks aren't gonna be there in the evening. Is that difficult?
Yeah, just,
yes, and kind of along with that, truck traffic, can you talk more about that? I mean, is it really trucks all day long going up and down? And is it for the whole summer? I'm just trying to figure out, like, is it literally every day, all day long, trucks going up and down? Or
yeah, we don't know. I mean,
We don't know.
They've not come out with that, the superintendent or whatever has not come out with a schedule yet, but they said it will be a lot of trucks, you know, that will be, it's no mention of digging a 40-foot deep hole, you know, so it's gonna be, they're pulling a lot of material out of there, then they're gonna be bringing in concrete, so it's gonna be, they've done it in Lake Forest, you know, years ago with that basin project, so it's gonna be a lot of traffic. And one of the things we were talking about in you know, even on the weekend, was having, you know, not having to say it's, you know, well, it's okay for, you know, this day, but it's not okay for that day, so Sunday you can do bikes and strollers and take your kayak, but then Monday you can't. Now, you know, but just for consistency and safety, but I understand that there's, you know, going to be a strong desire to have, you know, some access. I think it's reasonable to at least look into that and see if that's, you know, if that's possible for the weekends.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just talking about even during the week, during the weekday. How do we try and get to a place where we allow people to take their strollers down during the weekday? Is that even possible?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think I'd recommend it with the amount of construction traffic. I just think we have to say this is going to be an extremely difficult and disruptive, you know, summer, and the safest, you know, thing that we can do is not allow it while they're doing the construction. I think in the evenings or whatever, you know, the barriers will be up. If somebody goes around it or whatever, you know, that might be hard to control.
Is there a reason why we couldn't do evening weekdays when the trucks are gone? If we know they're gone and, you know, there's a sign off.
I don't think it's realistic
I just feel like all the.
to think we can get in there and start working around their schedule. Their schedule's not gonna be regular. You know, they're gonna be doing, we can't expect to know a week in advance exactly what they're doing every day.
No, but
I think we
we're
should,
going.
yeah,
It just, it doesn't work that way. That's not how they work.
if you have a project manager, they
They do
should.
what they do.
They should,
When they
they
do
should
it.
know, they should know, and they should work as a partner. And if they have those flaggers, the job of that flagger is to make sure that it's safe. That is their job.
I know it's their job, but if a human in a truck get in a fight, truck's gonna win every time, and you can't have that happen even once.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
But
Oh, for
if
sure, and the flagger's supposed to be like,
But
okay,
if the flagger's there, you know there's trucks. I'm just saying when the trucks are gone and the flaggers are gone because the business is done for the day. What, why is that?
I think it's, I would love to see this happen. I do think it is a challenge, Jim. I mean, our staffers, the construction company would then have to give us the all clear that everything's good to go. There has to be some type of line of communication with the people there. You have people at the beach until what time?
About 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock? So I guess in
But
theory.
we have a resident at the top with the flagger. That is a communication.
and then there's a manager on staff too. It's very well staffed. The beach.
I think that, I think this analysis and consideration has been done by the construction company and the village and the members of the park district, and I think it's important that we take that into account before trying to tell them what the community wants, because guess what? The community wants the beach to be open. I think we can all agree with that, and this is just the construction zone we're living in right now, and I think we all just have to adjust our expectations some. I think a good place to start is weekends. Hey, if things are going really, really well, let's open it back up. I would just rather err on the side of caution than to just say, okay, we can just go at night, and then there's an accident or some type of miscommunication. I'd rather just err on the side of caution.
I feel like this is a kind of familiar territory when it comes to adjusting as the summer goes on. And it reminds me a lot of 2020. We adjusted throughout the whole entire summer with COVID. We started being very cautious and didn't have as many people. And more people wanted to come down, and I know President Beeler and Commissioner Raymore, they helped me through that summer, volunteering their time and to help monitor the beach. And as we progressed more, we allowed more people and we figured out things. I think Commissioner Weber's right. I think once the summer gets going, maybe things will open up a little differently for us. We just don't know. It's an unknown right now. But I will say our beach staff is pretty easy to adjust with on the fly. And I think we'll figure that out in the evenings. I think we'll figure that out. The weekends is a great start.
And I think, that's what we talked about at the Park and Beach meeting was that it's easier to start the summer and not have those, but add them in if it looks like you can do something safely, than to start the summer with those and then have to take them away. I think it's going to be a lot more difficult process. So.
Because if there aren't trucks there as of Memorial Day weekend, people are going to start complaining right away and saying, well, you're doing this work, but it's because we have protocols that will be trucks eventually.
At the end of the day, though, we want to get this project finished. And I think trying to go in and trying to find a way to keep things open more of the time, and then there's going to be potentially pressure on the construction companies, and things are going to get moderated, and then we're not going to get it finished on time, and they're going to come back and say, yeah, well, you wanted it open on the weekends, and you wanted it open in the evenings, and we couldn't do this. And
I think.
if we can open things up later, that's fine. But I think we should go in saying this project is going to be very disruptive, and it's going to prohibit people from doing a lot of things they like doing. And for 1 year.
You don't know if it's going to be 1 year, maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
You have to enjoy the time you have. So they're taking away the South Beach, they're making that their project, they're putting the barriers up, and there is really no reason why we can't do it on the weekend and let people take their kayaks down and their paddleboards and enjoy it, because a lot of kids, my families have enjoyed it. People that have disabilities that you don't think have disabilities have enjoyed it, and I think it's wrong, because you don't know how long somebody's gonna live to, and you don't know if they're gonna be here next year, and you should let them have that opportunity.
Jim and Noah, from a safety standpoint, can you determine how many boaters you could have, kayaks and paddleboard, as well as accommodate swimmers? I mean, is there a minimum, a maximum? And I know it's kind of hard to say, but
Well, no one's
on a
gonna
summer
be-
weekend, I mean, the South Beach was,
At this point, we're saying no boats.
okay, so no
I mean,
kayaks, no
boats,
paddleboard.
are we talking about sun
No, paddleboard, I'm sorry,
Oh,
paddleboard
kayaks.
kayakers, yeah.
Kayaks and paddleboards.
Yeah, how many safely can you accommodate?
Well, they can't paddle, they can't do a paddleboard or a kayak in a cove. They will have to take it out of the cove. They're not gonna leave their equipment on the beach, so I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, every
You don't
year
think-
we allow as many as possible.
Right, so
And
you don't think there's a limit for it, as long as they're going out?
as long as they're going out, yes.
Okay, so if they're, okay, then let me add to that. So if they are bringing down a wheeled kayak or a wheeled paddleboard and they've got the trailer, where are you thinking those would go if we were to do that?
We would have to rope off an area so they can leave those, as close as, tucked in to the bluff, close as possible.
Either that or along the Armor Stone area that's next to the
Yeah,
park.
you know, when they come around, show us on the map.
That might be better.
I think I know what you're talking about, and that's probably the best
Yeah,
area, basically with the temporary dog beach.
Yeah, this area right along here. Where that nature area is.
I like the best location.
Yeah.
Oh, so tucked in close to the rocks area.
They trailers.
But then would they be launching from there too?
Yes.
yeah, that would be the side they're launching from.
That would be the area.
Then it's confusing to look at that in the map here because they're oriented differently.
Right.
So in this, in the picture here, I think it's about our illustration showing, talking about this area here. So this is where the temporary dog park was. It's the closest, to the access. So, but that was our concern, was even that, doing that, in that area, you start to limit, if you're gonna have trailers sitting here while the kayaks are out, you're gonna just limit some of the space of the beach. And that's what was one of our comments. That's something we could add if we could see, once we see that how manageable this is gonna be. But if we find out that it's not manageable, and, then it's gonna be hard to take away.
Okay. Are you anticipating additional staff down there because of this mix of kayaks and swimmers in this area?
There was just the talk of bringing that lifeguard chair from South Beach and that lifeguard to, giving us an extra staff in that area. If we needed it, not needed, it's a quieter day or whatever, they would be sent home.
I don't think we need any other extra staff. It'd be like South opening up. We didn't have extra staff when we launched kayaks and sunfish boats and paddleboards off that beach. It'd be similar.
But we did talk about moving that lifeguard from the
It's
south. Beach.
Yes, that we will.
Almost the same number of staff, it's just, we don't have one down in South Beach. They're helping in the middle and central, or middle and north area.
So the central beach becomes it becomes almost like the South Beach.
Yeah.
So this is the operations, and I thought we talked about it at the beach meeting, but I don't remember if we need to put it somewhere. The idea of non-residents, if there's gonna be a cap on that, or what we're gonna do to make sure that the Lake Bluff residents get priority to get done, if it's crowded. I mean, I don't wanna limit it, but we did it with the COVID, and with less beach, are we gonna have to consider that? And do we need to bake that into our operations?
Very good point. I mean, it's something that could be considered, where they limit, non-residents, afternoon or they can't come until after 12 o'clock at noon or 3 o'clock or whatever it is.
Well, the other thing that I've noticed, and you might want to consider, there is like a train of non-residents that come down to the beach on the weekends before the beach is open. It's pretty interesting, and from what I can tell, there's no check on them, like no one goes to them and asks them if they're residents, have they paid, at the beginning when the beach is first opening, and that might add to volume at the beach, that not only have they not paid, but if we're gonna be in a crowded situation, it may be something to consider to look at, to go through.
Staff is supposed to, they're supposed to, so, I will remind them.
Okay.
Because they are.
I've never seen it, I just thought because we're in a more crowded space, that might be something to think about.
Is there a world in which you tack on a couple additional hours on the weekends to have the staff there check in people in?
Usually so it's nice in the beginning of the season, just to see, how the season starts off and training and all that. We usually staff an extra for check-in. So we did budget for that, just the same thing, because we have so many new people, that's like the lower position. So we can see how the summer goes, and if we need to continue to have an extra person, we can do that.
You're talking about hours?
I'm talking earlier in the morning.
Yeah, earlier in the morning.
Doing starting at 7, just something to consider.
Sure.
Because I think that is a valid point where, people do take advantage of it early, and to be honest, it's probably hard for a 17 or 18-year-old to go back down to the beach and be like, oh, can I put you in again?
Well, we can actually ask the, assistant manager to get there earlier, and they can clear the beach and talk to, you certainly can do that, that's easy.
So if I'm hearing the way this is going, Mondays through Fridays during the construction hours is where there would be a ban on any wheeled, human propelled vehicles going down to the beach, because we just don't know when construction trucks are going on. But because the beach hours start from 9, go till 10 p.m., after the construction is done for the day, the flaggers are gone, there could be that accommodation for people to be able to come down to the beach. Strollers and wheeled vehicles and things like that.
Could be.
Could be.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's important that whatever information we put out, if we are restrictive in the beginning, like Jim has suggested, that we just make it clear that we will be continually readjusting, and our goal is safety, and we will add back access as we feel it's safe, but,
Let's start with the weekends.
Just start with the
Yeah, I
weekends,
would
not
start
the
with the
weekends.
weekends and add the evenings if we see how,
There's a
when we
good
see
system.
how.
because we don't know.
Yeah, but with the caveat that if there is going to be construction on the weekends, the same protocol flows over to weekends.
In the weekends, yeah, and that's something that we are gonna check with, the contractor and the village to even, just to make sure that that's gonna be something we can offer on a regular basis.
I just don't think we're going to have the luxury of knowing how they're going to structure their construction. We don't know when trucks are going to be there, we just don't know.
And then, sorry, back to Sue's point on resident versus non-resident. I just want to say that I've had several residents ask me if we will make it a residence on the beach this summer because of the condensed amount of space. And just questions about
Yeah,
it.
no.
Is there, will there be a discussion about it? What is the thought process on it?
I don't think we
So-
can legally do that. We had that discussion during COVID, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And you have to allow non-residents access. You can limit
Okay.
the hours, and I believe we did that. You did. But we can't say no, non-residents can't have access.
Is there any kind of a capacity on the beach, a legal capacity? I know we reduced it, we had it reduced for COVID, but is there in regular times, is there a capacity that we have to follow that we never worried about?
So there is a bigger load, and I've been looking, trying to find it, and I've talked to one of our construction people in the past, and they just can't seem to know what that number would be. And it's gonna be much greater than the pool. It's gonna be, the pool's 600. Okay, so just give you an idea, we don't have 600 in a day at the beach. So we've never, since I've been here, ever really hit that capacity. Okay. Now, we did talk to the attorneys, I did, with Tom Busby, who was interim director, when we were in COVID, and yes, we had to leave some sort of hours available. That was due to COVID. I think we should double check because of the construction to make sure that if it's recommended to reduce the hours for non-residents, we should just check with the attorneys on that.
I know it does affect, in talking to Army Corps of Engineers, there was some effect on, federal funding or state funding for grants, like the funded project down there, because they should provide access to all residents of the state. So they were not happy about it. The fact that we had it restricted, and that's when we lowered that, I think eventually to like noon, and then did away with it altogether, so, but we can explore that.
If we could, that'd be great. We don't have to decide that tonight, obviously, but we could keep that discussion.
Or you can kind of do like that. What's the highest percentage you could charge a non-resident?
Oh, that's a great question, because I think there is a certain percentage. I'd have to get back to you on that. That's come up before, and from what I could recall, it has to do with taxes that the residents pay and what that percentage would go to the beach, versus or compared to what you would charge a non-resident for. And that, we looked into this during COVID, so we'll have to get back to you on that.
We make money from the non-residents.
I know.
We should make it a non-resident.
Slowly.
Okay,
Not a good idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Huge money, but
Not huge money, but I know, yeah, no, you're right.
this year.
You're right.
volleyball's gonna be closed, but we talked about giving volleyball as a special activity.
No, that was brought up by one of the committee members, to do it. I'll kind of defer a little bit to Noah on the volleyball net.
Volleyball will be difficult because we have to actually plant we dig, the volleyball net posts are in concrete containers that have to be set in the sand. So to remove it and put it back every time would be very difficult for staff to maintain. So it would either be a program we do or we would have to remove for the season.
I think our recommendation was to start without it, and then because it takes, a court is 30 by 60 feet, roughly the volleyball court. So our recommendation was start without it, and then if we see that there's regularly enough open space that could be added, then it's added and we keep it. It's not, doesn't sound like it's very feasible to put it in and out, twice a week or something like that. But if we see that that area is regularly open enough, then maybe we put it in for the summer, but start without it. But we were talking about also adding some additional, they have some of the board games and some beach games, to make sure that that's put out and accessible for, for our users.
Okay. And if anyone brings there's other equipment and things like that, how do you address that with the ATV?
We're gonna be very polite to the residents and try to ask those that can carry it down to carry it down. We will try to accommodate as best as we can with the ATV. The issue is, it's, you know, we want to mainly use it for ADA, you know, during the day. We do have rentals, but usually that is 1 or 2 times they go down. I mean, you could be talking several people, and now it's having that balance act with all the residents that complain about the noise of the ATV, and then you got the trucks, and it's gonna be a lot. So we'll work with people, we'll work with the residents the best that we can, and those that we know can possibly carry us, you know, smaller, cooler, they're gonna have to do that. So we'll help. They've always helped out with individuals, so I'm not horribly concerned, but I think it's gonna be a real rough summer for staff.
Yeah, and that includes park meetings, you know, they're down there twice a week with a beach groomer. We've discussed, we're not sure the truck and trailer will be able to get down the hill, around, unload and back up, so they may have to unload at the top, which means parking it on Sunrise, unloading the beach groomer, which makes some noise, and at beach, you know, at 6:30 in the morning, and running that down, up and down the access. Again, not ideal, but, you know, maybe something that we have to do in order to be able to, you know, groom the beach.
And I know, we're just gonna have to assess as we go, because I know that the condition of the road was a concern a couple of years ago before North Shore decided to fill in the potholes. We're just gonna all have to be very cognizant of the safety of using the beach as the summer continues, because they're not gonna be inclined to mess with anything until they're done. We'll see. Okay, so, from the information that Jim has put forth about the beach operations, we need to then vote on what the accessibility will be. Right? Well, now we've got to either accept the recommendations or we have to modify the guidelines that we're putting forth.
Just the agenda says discussion.
Discussion? Oh,
Does-
I know, but I'm sorry, because I'm looking at it says move to adopt and implement. So I have a motion here in front of me.
Sorry about that.
Okay, sorry about that too.
So, yeah, and really, I think that, you know, we are looking for, you know, for input, Parks and Beach Committee, from the board, if you want to, you know, to look elsewhere. We know that this is going to be, you know, difficult and disruptive summer. So, you know, we want to try to accommodate as much as we can of our beach and the beach operation, realizing that safety is really a priority. So, if there's more, you know, you brought up some good things, you know, looking to see if we can accommodate, you know, change some of the things for the weekends. If there's, you know, other things you want us to be working on, we can, but I guess we basically want to know if we're going in the right direction here.
I think you're going in the right direction, and I think I propose a change to, I guess, bullet point 4, due to the inconsistency of the construction trucks, walkers, rock runners, and anything with wheels won't have access to the bottom of the road during weekdays, period.
I think it should be evaluated. I don't think we should put it there. We should evaluate that. I don't think we can evaluate what we can do on weekends today.
Well, we know their hours of operation, we were told, are Monday through Friday, 7 to 5. That was what we were just
They include
informed.
Saturday morning? Or does the construction hours include Saturday morning?
During our pre-construction meeting, I don't believe they mentioned anything about Saturday mornings.
Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, that was the first thing I would check, you know, and what their plans are for working on the weekends, and if it's very limited or not, and then I think this is, you know, a very reasonable request to try to accommodate. And our, you know, we would be pushing at the fact that, you know, this is a very strong request for the summer months, you know, that once you get into the fall and winter, then, you know, it's not gonna be nearly as disruptive. You still have a lot of bikers and walkers and joggers on the access path, but, you know, at least in the summer, I think this would be a reasonable request, so let's start there.
I think it would extend to the evenings too, to clarify, you know, what is their practice? When do they, if they say they're working till 5, what does that mean? Are they gone at 5? Or for us to understand better how people can use that beach safely on the road possibly.
All right. Anything else with this? All right. Thank you very much, Jim and Noah and John, because this is, it takes a lot of work to be able to put this all together. Thank you to the Friends group for finishing off the stairs. It was fortuitous that they did that, because now we've got a much safer pathway going down there and good handrails and everything else. So I think that's a very good point, is that we will just continue to watch this and assess this as we go through the summer and see how it goes. And Marcia, thank you for the visual cues as to what I vote on and what I don't vote on. All right, so we're clear? We're good? Okay. Oh, wait, let me just ask one more thing. What is then the intent for giving this report as a message to the community? I know you said a QR code, but when do we start actively promoting this?
I think we should remind us to. I mean, we just need to have a little bit more clear, you know, understanding of what it's going to be before so we don't start putting out mixed messages, to make sure that we have committee, board, staff, everybody on the same page and agreement with what it's going to be. Before, you know, we start strong messages on each, you know, bullet point or what's going to be allowed or not.
Okay.
Unless you want us to start with stuff we know probably isn't going to change.
Memorial Day, you mean by Memorial Day, right?
Okay, yeah.
I mean, one of those things, like, you say the message now, right, and it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, but I mean, really, this affects summer traffic and summer hours more than anything,
Right.
So, yeah, I'm not saying push it down, but, you know, start the messaging closer to when it's actually going to.
Well, I know you said we're gonna start taking the sand out in March, so we should have a pretty good idea of how they operate, I mean, right?
If that's the timeline that they do stick to, yes, hopefully by mid-March, that was what I was told in one of the last meetings I was in, was yes, they do anticipate to start in mid-March. They're gonna have to raise the yacht club compound, remove all that first, then they will start with pulling the sand out.
But we'll get a feel for how it's going and how the pattern.
I would think by the end of March, beginning of April, yeah, we should have a good feel for it.
But I think we have to assume when they're working, they could be bringing trucks down at any time, so I do agree that that's.
So that'll be up to them, the bikers, to control traffic going up and down.
How often do you have meetings for the operation?
We had a pre-construction meeting, and I had one meeting on site with the construction manager just to talk about where we wanted the sand place that was coming out of the ground, but that they haven't scheduled regular meetings. They've been just kind of, not, I won't say impromptu, but we've had 2 meetings so far. That's it.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Last item under new business, the retreat that we have been talking about with the commissioners and the foundation. As Ann mentioned before, we've participated in 2 meetings so far. April 15th is the day that we will do this. We're anticipating 4 hours or so. Okay, and really, it's evolving very nicely in terms of how Ellen Brenda, who is the consultant with the Friends, is envisioning how to run this retreat. There will be breakout sessions, there will be some role playing as well, but it's really the opportunity, first off, to be able to work with the foundation trustees, be able to meet them, but also get consistent messaging on fundraising, on the park district and our budgeting, our capital needs, our income, and also, as Ann spoke about before, what the foundation feels that they have in terms of their board members for their strengths and how they see themselves as well. So, quickly, Ellen had put together some very interesting information about even revenue comparisons for other park districts, other cities, as well as other fundraising groups or nonprofit groups in the area to see how we compare to Gordon, to the library, to the History Museum, and so forth. So it's a good idea as to where, how do we put the guardrails on?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting information to say, okay, so, you know, what has the Friends been able to raise over the last 5 years, for example? So we look at that compared to, as Jennifer said, the other groups in the area, to kind of get a comparative analysis of that, and then try to understand where our opportunities are going forward. So, just in the little that I've learned, just in going through the planning process, I thought was really interesting. So looking forward to bringing that forward.
So everybody keep April 15th available, please. It'll be in the morning, most likely, probably through to lunch. Questions? No? All right. Written communications. We do have email that came through. Everybody has that in your packet. That came through back in January, so that's included as well. Other than that, no other correspondence. So that brings us to the adjournment of our meeting tonight. Motion? Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.